A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. The Lord was pleased to crush him in infirmity. If he gives his life as an offering for sin, he shall see his descendants in a long life, and the will of the Lord shall be accomplished through him. Because of his affliction, he shall see the light in fullness of days. Through his suffering, my servant shall justify many, and their guilt he shall bear. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Suffering seems to be all around us. It can feel as if our whole world is smothered in this great blanket of suffering, darkness, and affliction. We are still in the midst of this terrible pandemic. There are millions dead across the world, countless others who have had their lives thrown upside down. There are those in hospitals and nursing homes who've been left isolated and alone. Doctors and nurses have been worn out. They have given totally of themselves, and now there's no one to care for them. Then there is our terribly divided world. It seems that we cannot agree on anything. Social media and the cable news media seem to be dominated by those who disagree simply to be contrarian, and those who are angry just for the sake of being angry. And our world seems to be afflicted with disasters, both natural and man-made, on a seemingly daily basis. And these are just the sufferings that are visible to all people. What about those individual sufferings that only we ourselves know about? It might be the ministry that has not been as fulfilling as we had hoped it would be, or our classes have not been what we expected. Maybe it is a relationship with a friend or family member that has grown cold with the passage of time. Perhaps it is an old hurt that we can never seem to move on from. All of these can sit in our hearts, and they eat away at us, and at the joy that God calls us to live. Suffering seems to stalk us at every moment. It can really feel sometimes as if God is pleased to crush us in infirmity. How are we to understand this? How are we to discern God's presence in our lives in the midst of so much darkness? For some people, that answer is to withdraw, to isolate themselves from others. It ends up becoming an idea of, it's my fault. I'm the one to blame. I'm the problem. God has abandoned me. We can think, I'm totally broken. I deserve this suffering. For others, the answer may be to rage against a nameless and amorphous they, who is the cause of all my problems. And as soon as that they is eliminated, everything will be okay. But as people of faith, we know where the answer truly lies. It lies in that, the cross of Jesus Christ. You see, with the eyes of faith, we can see God's presence and God's love in the midst of that suffering that lies all around us. In Jesus' suffering and death, what can look like a disaster, a nightmare, is transformed into the gift of life. The cross is the ultimate sign of God's love for us. Jesus' suffering helps us to know that even in the darkest moments of our own personal sufferings, we can still find Him, and in finding Him, we can grow to be like Him, and in growing to be like Him, we can be the presence of Christ for those who are in most need of God's presence. We can share in their suffering. And in sharing in the suffering of others, we can help them to see that God is still with them, that they are not abandoned. Or at the very least, we can sit with them in their suffering, and we can be a source of strength, comfort, and hope. The same way Jesus was for those who encountered Him during His passion. Think of the way Jesus interacted with His mother with the beloved disciple or the good thief. Even in this moment of darkness for Christ, he was still a source of strength for those who loved him. And even in the midst of such terrible darkness, Jesus remained the light of the world, and through his suffering, we were justified. So let us live our lives so that the light of Christ will shine through us and illumine the darkness that we all face, and that this light will show others the way to a God who loves them and will never abandon them. Because Jesus is the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.
Dear God,